Hi there, it's Steph. Thanks for popping by my channel. Today I wanted to share a Valentine's Day card with you, so all about hearts and flowers. I cut my watercolor cardstock to size 10.5 times 14.8 centimeters, and I then placed it in my stamping tool because I stamped a few cards, and you can see at the end of the video another example I've done with the same design. I use my embossing buddy bag to remove the static electricity from my paper and make it easier to emboss afterwards. I stamped with some Versamark ink, and then I used some Ranger embossing powder, which I think is Princess Gold, and I started painting with some Ranger Distress ink. So first I used picked raspberry, and then I topped it up with some festive berries to do a bit of a shading effect. I jumped forward a bit. It's basically the same process for each flower. First some pink and then a bit of red here and there. And when I'm done with all the flowers, I use my heat gun to dry it all. So I know that it's all going to stay in place. Don't overheat your embossing powder, otherwise you will get a few troubles, particularly with watercolor cardstock. Then I used a tiny brush and I went in between all the flowers to put some water, and I dropped a bit forward, but you can see what it's about, and a bit around heart shape as well. And then I'm gonna drop the color, and it will be easier, will help the color to move between the flowers, making my job much easier. So here you go. I've decided to go for green because I wanted a good contrast, and I think that the gold, the pink and the green go well together. So I go all around the heart and between the flowers. And then I color the rest, the rest of my card with some green, and I used Maude Lawn, because I can't pronounce it properly, from Ranger as well. I really like that green because I think it's very vibrant. So I keep adding some green in the background because I want it to be really vibrant. And I fill in the tiny spaces I may have missed because it's rather intricate in between the flowers, and a pointy brush really comes in handy there. Then off screen I'm mixing some black with the green to do a deeper green that I will use only in between the flowers and around the heart, just to create a little bit more dimension and depth to my design. And I go round until I'm happy that it's dark enough. I will then blend with some more green, Maude Lawn, so that the transition of the color is smooth. I don't want to have any bold transition. I just want a smooth background. And I remove the excess water so my paper doesn't, you can see it webbed a bit on one side, but it's still okay. And once I use the heat gun, it's fine. Then I added a bit of black suit to my festive berry, and I'm just coloring some of the petals with this darker, richer pinky red, which I think is very appropriate for Valentine's Day. And you will see I move forward because it takes me quite a while to do that, but it really does add more depth to that heart shape, flower heart shape, and I think it works really well. So then again I will dry it with my heat gun, and I think the contrast looks really good at that point. Once it's dry, off camera I will cut a heart shape mask, and I'm just gonna mask the heart and splatter some drops of green, still the same color. I think it's a darker one, and then I will dry with the heat gun, and I'm going to repeat that process several times. Once I will drop color, and once I will remove it. So the second time I drop the water droplets, it's actually water, it's not paint, sorry. I use my tea towel and I just remove the water to get these white marks, washed out marks, and that really adds something to the background. It's much less plain, much more vibrant, and it does give it a bit of depth. So here again I added some ink splatter and I dry it again. When this is dry, I do a fourth layer, actually a second layer of water droplet to remove a bit of color again, just trying to balance all of the colors out. I wait for a few seconds that the water reacts with the ink before I remove it, otherwise it won't do anything. And then when I'm done with that, I'll remove the mask and do a few droplets in between the flowers carefully with my brush. I can't obviously just dribble water over everything, otherwise it would destroy the flowers. So I just wait a little bit, and here again I use my little piece of paper and kitchen roll, sorry, and remove my color. Then I put a few dots of green. It's a bit more control, it's less messy and less random, but you have to with that kind of design. And then I'm done. After that, I took a piece of vellum that I embossed with my sentiment. I first used my embossing buddy and then Versamark and the same ink that I use for the heart, and I cut it to size. Finally, in order to do a bit more contrast, I'm on a contrast thing here. I take a piece of Nina Solar white cardstock and I put Versamark ink all around it, and I covered it with that same embossing powder. And I'm creating my own shiny cardstock, but I just go around because you don't need to put it all over, and it's quite easy really, and then you can't get it wrong because it has to be the same color. So I trim my card front to size, and then the other piece of cardstock with the melted embossing powder, and then I glue both together to then add it onto my card front. There is a little bit of warping there. I mean, I don't know if it's very obvious at the video on the video, but the background, the one with the embossing powder, is quite thick because of the embossing powder, and the watercolor cardstock is thick anyway because it is watercolor cardstock, so it does end up being a little bit warpy when I glue it onto my blank cards. So what I've done after all of that is putting it under something really heavy for a while, and it's actually okay now, so don't panic. So I glue my card front onto my card, and then I will add my sentiment onto my card. I've actually cut a little, what I would call a little tail. I'm not sure how it's actually called, but I just gave it a little pointy end, so it looks a little prettier. So I was hesitating what to put my sentiment, and after trying all around the card, I decided to put it on the bottom left because it pops out better with the green background than it would do with the flowers. I'm sorry, it's a little bit off camera here. I'm having a problem gluing vellum without making the glue obvious to the eye. Even with a little bit of glue, it always goes through. But I don't think I'm the only one having that problem. I've seen around people having very similar issues, and particularly when the sentiment is in a very thin font. I think if you had a very large font, really bold, it would be easier, but in that case it doesn't. And my card is shiny enough, I really don't need any sequins, for example. That would be able to help. So anyway, here's a final card. I hope you like it. I have another card on the very similar design but different colors. I think it looks a bit more like poppies than roses, so that's a way to stretch your dies, I suppose. Thank you for watching.